prior to even our wedding, we discussed how long it will take for us to introduce a third person into the family.
I like that. Right there. We've witnessed a lot of marriages collapse because of childlessness. Husbands, wives, mocked for what they term as their inability to have children. So I asked the question, are children the ultimate prize in marriages? So here on Moans Cuddles, we discuss how to handle childlessness, and also in the cases where you find yourself in what they term as an unplanned pregnancy, how best do you handle the situation? And I have here with me the right guest to do the discussion. So Thomas Duke Labig Amankado, he's a doctoral research fellow at the University of Oslo, Norway. Yes, and he's also a former University of Oxford scholar, and he is the author of historic fiction book, The Half Moon. And also, he is a coach. Thomas, you're welcome.
Thank you very much, Paula.
It's a pleasure to have you here.
I'm honored to be here.
Yeah, he's very popular on Facebook, so you should check out all the amazing things that he does. We're not doing this alone. We also have Smart Techi Nixon. He's an author, a broadcast journalist, a public relations officer. So when we talk, you know, event hosting, when you're looking for someone to train you in public speaking, when we talk about you know, creative writing and anything that has got to do with stage play production, we say Smart Techi Nixon. Gentlemen, you're welcome.
Thank you, Paula.
Thank you. Later on, we're going to discuss all the amazing things that you do. That's why we call you the proud sons of the land, guys. So, yeah. But today is a big deal in our parts of the world where we find ourselves. And they say children are a gift from God, and when you don't have children in a marriage, trust me, they're going to come after you. So I just want to find out, are children the ultimate prize in marriage? Let me take it from you, Smart, since you are the married man. Yeah.
Nice way to cut Duke some slack on this one. But interestingly, I think that one of the fascinating things that I've heard about marriage is a marriage without a child is still a marriage. And so if you're a couple and you're going into marriage, it is one of the things that you should have at the back of your mind, that a marriage without a child is still a marriage. It doesn't nullify the status of the marriage, okay? And that is one of the things that people do not come to accept, because if you take a look at our part of the world, and I'm quite glad that you mentioned our part of the world, when you marry an individual, you are marrying a family. You are not marrying just a person. So at the weddings, you see it manifest. You see expectations of people being projected on you. And after the marriage as well, you would hear these expectations, because sometimes you would go and visit your in-laws, and some of them will pass very funny comments like, hey, it's been a year since you guys got married, what's happening? We all know the intent of that particular statement. It is an indirect way to tell you that you guys are really delaying when it comes to childbirth. And you hear these comments coming from the mothers especially. I want to hold my grandchild. I want to hold my grandchild. But on a broader spectrum, if you really want to take a look at childbirth and the importance of it in marriage, there are a lot of things that stops or prevents a couple from having a child. Let's even move away from the medical condition. I personally believe that there is nothing like there is this funny saying we have in Ghana. People tell you, oh, you just give birth, God will take care of it.
But I don't know how much baby food, pampers, diapers, all those things.
Precisely.
We have no idea.
Precisely.
But Smart, I'll come to you. Thomas, we know that family pressure can be very worse. So how best can a couple handle an in-law who is always on your door knocking, when are the children going to come? When are the children going to come? And usually it's the women who suffer this. So as a loving husband, how best can you tame them?
Well, thank you very much for the question. And I'm not a loving husband yet, so it's a bit tricky. But that being said, I think that children are indeed a blessing to every couple. And when we look at this from a cultural perspective, for a cultural dimension, we would understand that it's not just about having a child for just having a child for that sake, but it is a way of sort of bringing the two families together in ways that probably would be impossible by just signing a document in court or exchanging vows. This sort of it carves this union between the two families in a very spectacular way, and that is why families always, place a lot of weight on children. But then again, you're not your own creator, and you sometimes it might. I mean, you try and you're not getting it. But how to handle this is a very tricky question that I don't think we can unravel, get to an answer. But what I can say is that it all comes down to understanding between the families. Why are we not having a child? Is there a medical explanation to this? Is there something we can do medically to improve our chances of getting a baby? If not, then what's the next best option to having a baby? I think that it comes down to just communication between the families and getting to find the best alternative.
Okay.
Yeah.
People place a lot of emphasis when it comes to, you mentioned the medical aspect of it, then you realize that other people are also putting a lot of pressure on the spiritual aspect of it.
Yes.
So, a couple finds themselves in a quagmire where someone says, okay, forget about the doctors, let's go and see this pastor.
Yeah. I think that you realize you've been all over the place.
Yeah.
But then I just want to find out, because I'm the woman, let me speak for the women.
Okay.
In a marriage where there's no kids, childlessness, the first person that people blame, the woman.
Yeah.
Oh, you can't have children. You're a barren woman. The list goes on and on. Why are people quick to, put the blame on women? Meanwhile, there are men who got low sperm count, impotent, if that's the word, it's not too hard. But then people are quick to do. Is it that the women love to take the blame because they don't want people know, oh, my husband, his performance is just, why?
Women are the bearers of life.
Okay.
Women are the bearers of life. Every life on this planet Earth came from a woman. Every single life. There is nothing that walks on the surface of this earth that didn't come from a woman. I mean, aside the man's contribution, it is the women that we see produce. It is the women we see deliver. It is the woman we are expecting to bring the child into the family. But what they forget is what you also pointed out, is that it's two people that put the woman in that particular condition before she can deliver. However, our families are designed in such a way that whenever people get married, at the end of the day, people have this mindset that, okay, the moment I am expecting something from your family or from the couple and I am not getting it, the first intent is to change the woman and not to change the man. The pressure is that, oh, she's not fertile enough. We should have done a background check on her family. We should have asked more questions. Do you know whether she has done any abortions? And so there is too much of expectations, especially on the side of the woman. And I've always maintained this position that it takes a man of strong mind to stand and tell his own parents in the face that stop the noise. Stop putting the woman through that pressure. Because there are things in life you just cannot control. And it's also one of the hardest truths that people can accept. There are things you can control. There are couples today, there is nothing medically wrong with them. Exactly. There is nothing spiritually wrong with them. It is not coming. So I would borrow the words of Duke. It comes down to understanding. Do you even understand? These people are in a space where they are doing everything for the first time. The marriage is their first marriage. Yeah. They are even finding ways of navigating it. And you are here putting pressure of childbirth on them. And so you must have a man. If the man weakens in his mind to kowtow to, let's say, whatever family is saying, that is where the woman feels a lot of pressure on herself, because she feels like she doesn't have anybody to lean on.
Exactly.
But if you are the man and you step forward,
stand up for her,
and you are able to tell even your own parents, not just the lady's parents, your own parents that, hey,
because we say you are the, you are the head of the house. Act
and you are the neck.
Exactly. The woman is the neck. So you tell them, this is my home, this is how things are going to be run. But then, Duke, in our part of the world, because we prioritize children a lot.
Yeah.
In the cases when they are not coming, people want to try everything possible. They want to know that they've exhausted all means possible. But one thing that people don't love to go for is surrogacy or adoption.
Yeah.
Why is it a big
this is a very tricky question, you know. It comes down to Ghana's social structure, our cultural social structure. We, the smallest unit in the Ghanaian society is the family, right?
Yeah.
And until recently, it was the extended family. And this is a very close-knit blood relation, right? And Ghanaians, it's hard sometimes to admit this, but we are very tribalistic.
Highly.
We're very, ethnocentric to that extent. And so, you want, people just can't understand why they should just go and take someone they don't share this blood relation with, and then all of a sudden treat that person as if that person was his family. Yeah. And this is the reason why adoption is very, very, very difficult. But then again, this is a country where we are also quite funny, because we also love to bring people that we're not blood related to into our homes, and then also treat them as if they were family. We have so many people living with their aunties and uncles and great uncles and great aunties and distant relatives and all that. But I think when it comes down to childlessness and adoption, it also sort of sends a signal that you have conceded defeat. As soon as you go in for an adoption, then you send a signal to the church members and the Meko that you don't trust you don't trust God anymore, and you've taken the matters into your own hands.
So in a case where we're getting married, maybe I'm a career woman, this is the time where I'm at my peak, so I just want to give myself some time, and then the family people come in and all that. People even think like, okay, of course you can't have children, but meanwhile at that time I'm just taking my time. You married, smart. So how best can a couple inform the family that, okay, we are giving ourselves some time?
So for us, I think my wife and I, we made a lot of things clear to both parents. We have visited my parents and they've passed the comment and shut them up. We visited her parents. They've made a comment and she shut them up. Because prior to even our wedding, we discussed how long it would take for us to introduce a third person into the family.
I like that.
You understand? Yeah. That discussion went so deep to the point that we had to even discuss the type of education we want to give our kids. And so we thought to ourselves that it needed planning. It wasn't something that we were just going to step in and, do. And most things that people do not weigh as well. It's quite interesting you mentioned career, because in Ghana today, if a lady should get pregnant, it means that she is about to lose about 2 years of her life. And if most men are fully aware in terms of consciousness of the place in which you're going to put the woman, they will think twice about how they bring kids into, because there are, I know a friend who the wife gave birth, the first one, and the second one followed very quickly. like 6 months later, the wife had taken seed again. And so now this lady, who probably may be supporting you at home with other stuff in terms of payment of bills and all that, is going to be out of work for the next 3 to 4 years. And if we do not manage these things, and I really agree with you, because now you must ask yourself, why are we bringing the kids? Is it just we enjoy having kids, or we really want to give them the best of life, or it is just nice to have an addition in the family to the, you know, to the extended family?
But before we wrap up on this particular discussion, I just want to ask you how important, just hammer, how important it is to plan your children. Because in Ghana, we're talking about economy, things are hard, but you know, people just want to give birth. And there are a lot of children on the streets who are just under the sun, selling and all that. If you know you are not ready, God will take care.
Paula, let's face the fact. It's very difficult to plan in Ghana. It's not like people don't want to plan, or people just don't, are just careless. It's just difficult to plan anything in Ghana. People plan their education, and university lecturers go on strike, and all of a sudden your plan is thrown ajar. It's very difficult. We live in a country where almost everything is based on contingency. You can't even plan a trip that would take 1 hour. You end up spending 3 hours.
Contingency must.
Yes, you say I can't stay my plan.
Wow.
So that's the fact of this life in this country. You can't just plan. That doesn't mean that you should not plan. But you have to plan in such a way that would inculcate into your plan these inconsistencies, these you know, unforeseen circumstances. Almost every friend I have here in Ghana is in a precarious job situation, apart from those who are working for the government. I have one of my friends who recently had, in the span of 4 years, has had 3 kids, and this guy is unemployed. And I asked him, just yesterday, but how are you being responsible? You are not even responsible for your own self. You're not being, how are you doing this?
3 kids in 4 years.
And then what he told me was that, how do I think he survived? And I said, how? He said, God. It's just God.
God will take care of us.
It's just God.
I see.
It is important to plan, Paula, but at the same time, we don't want to discourage the youth. We don't want to discourage our peers from taking certain bold steps.
Great. Thank you very much, gentlemen. So we're having today's discussion at Anpi's Barber's Studio here at the Legon City Mall. Guys, ladies, just working anytime from Monday to Sunday. He works all the time. So you can come here for a clean shave. Our gentlemen, it's very important that you look good all the time. Women too, we have braiding here, we do twist and locks, we do pedicure. It's a 360 thing here, and the environment is very cool. When you come here, you can come with your friends, and as I stated the last time, you can come with your, boyfriend, let him get a clean cut, and then later on, you see what will happen. But we'll take a quick break here. When we come back, Moans Cuddles on Ghanaweb TV continues. Welcome back. This is Moans Cuddles on Ghanaweb TV. I am Paula, Amma, Broni. Now for the second part, we're doing something interesting. How to take responsibility for an unplanned pregnancy. Now this is just not for married people. Before the marriage, when you're there with your girlfriend, with your a woman that you're seeing, and maybe if it's just a one-night thing and she comes back to say, I'm pregnant, how do you handle it? Do you say, oh please, this is not what I bargained for, go do the abortion, or you take responsibility? Because at the end of the day, men are taking responsibility for pregnancies. Well, the plan was never to get married. So I just want to have a discussion with our men, Thomas and Smart. So if you had one married your wife, right, and the lady comes in and says, I'm pregnant for you. The plan was not to, get married. how are you going to take it? How are you going to handle it?
I would have advised against it. I would have advised against it. I have a very strong mindset when it comes to stuff like that. And I've realized that in our country, people frown on certain decisions. Now, there is an argument, whether it's pro-life, it's pro-choice, which side do you stand? I don't stand anywhere. I stand where I would benefit from the results. Okay? Because a lot of things truncate. A lot of things truncate the moment you take that decision. And this is something I tell people. You are free to choose. You are never free from the consequences of your choice. Because the moment something just happens, everything about your life changes. A lady comes to you, she tells you, probably someone you've been dating for a year or two, she tells you, I'm pregnant. What's going to happen now? That means you are going to assume a particular role.
Daddy.
A daddy role. And a daddy role comes with a lot of, responsibilities. And probably, like Luke was saying, you are not even fully in that space, or you don't even have the potential to take care of yourself.
You cannot tell us that you are not ready.
Exactly. So that is where the choice comes in, like I mentioned. What do you want? What do you have with your partners? Or you mentioned even one night stand and stuff like that. People do it once, and
I'm pregnant.
The funny part is the bad boys do it consistently, and one good boy tries it once, one time. Then everything is...
That's so painful.
So, in as much as it is very difficult for you to decide, the two of you must sit down. The two of you must sit down and ask yourself, do we need this?
Okay. Can
we handle this? Because what we normally say is, oh, maybe if we take this away, we might not get one anymore. Do you know how many women are stuck in the hospital because their men or boyfriends or husbands cannot pay for them to be discharged? It's just there, numerous of them. So you ask yourself, you can't even pay for your partner to be discharged. What will you feed the children with? What will you? So planning is key.
All right.
And communication is also key because you must talk about it.
I want to do a quick one on.
Okay.
Thomas, as a woman, I want to understand, why do some men, emphasis on some men, switch up? We're having a loving relationship. The moment the lady says, I'm pregnant, then you switch up. Then you are showing us your true colors. Why do you do that?
It's because, if you... let's face the fact, some people have sex for recreational purposes. And not for family making purposes.
It was nothing serious.
So assuming you go into some sort of a social contract, right? That you're having sex and you're very much aware that, as we say, a friendly match, right? It's for recreational purposes. Then the lady turns up and says, well, there is a lifelong commitment that has been, as a result of of course, you would flip. I will flip.
I would.
If I'm being honest, because that wasn't the point. That wasn't the social contract. That wasn't unless, of course, there was some sort of consensus that if this, results in pregnancy, we could consider it, right? But if there isn't anything of that sort, then I think that...
Thomas, a man can talk about, oh, we're going to have a happy kids and stuff like that. Till some men actually talk about having kids until you tell them there's a kid on the way. But then you talk about a man having to flip because that was not part of his plan. Would you say that is the woman's responsibility to be on a long-term contraceptive while you are not so certain if the man is going to, accept responsibility in that case?
Paula,
should we take the decision of, being in control? Because when it turns out, it always comes back to us.
As a man sitting where I'm sitting now, first of all, I can't dictate or even suggest what kind of contraceptive you should put into your body, because these things come with their own side effects, right? Yeah. But what I can advise my friends is that you should understand that once you get pregnant, even if the man is going to be responsible, you are going to be the one carrying the baby for 9 months. You are going to be the one whose career might be affected by this baby, right? So even though it appears to be a 50-50% responsibility going into this, it isn't. Yes. And that's a natural fact of the matter, that women must always be a step ahead of us when it comes to being smart about whether you want to have a baby or not. Because once you get pregnant, whether it was for recreational purpose or whatever, as soon as the lady becomes pregnant, in my humble opinion, the choice of whether to keep the baby or not is almost solely the woman's responsibility. If the woman says, no, I can't because of my career or even because of my body, that's her choice. That's her body, that's her choice.
Exactly.
Likewise, if she says, well, I think I'm 29 and my mom is, and so I want to have it, then you, the guy, you are in big trouble. You can't force the woman to get an abortion, right? True. So if this is, based on what I've painted here right now, women should always understand that even though it's a 50-50 sort of affair, it's your responsibility to protect yourself and protect your career and protect your health. True. And don't get pregnant for men who can't afford to bail you out of
men, let me put it that way. But then before we wrap up on this conversation, I just want to find out, some men say they were trapped into marriage with a pregnancy. So if a man who is in the hot seat, you find yourself in this situation, but you're thinking, oh, you don't want to have a baby mama, you don't want your kids to be scattered, should you go ahead, even without any plan, or the woman being the woman of your dream, should you go ahead and marry that person? And I would say that don't go having sex with women that you can't close your eyes and imagine that this woman is going to be.
It doesn't happen like that, Paula. It doesn't happen.
It should happen like that.
It doesn't happen like that.
You should take responsibility for your action. If you're having sex with a woman,
this is why I think
you should envisage yourself that in the case, in the worst case, am I going to be okay?
You know, it doesn't happen like a structured sex. Sex is not always structured and planned.
See, those who go for the recreational sex, they know their game. They're always on the contraceptives.
And sometimes,
but these women who are tripped,
sometimes they are the ones that come back with the issues.
No, see, Duke.
They are the ones that come back with the issues. We're discussing this because we want people to understand something. You can find somebody and have a very good vibe with the person on the first day you meet the person. A very good vibe, you can swear you've never had that vibe with anybody before. And that vibe will lead to sex. And 3 weeks later, the lady will give you a call and tell you something you are not ready to. So, yes, the conversation circles around that. But then, it's very long. There's a long decision as to that. Personally, this is something I tell myself. I'll tell you a story. I made a promise to myself that I wouldn't want a lady to have a child for me that I am in no way in the life of the child. Let's say if the relationship doesn't go well. So that is where your point comes in. If I'm about to do something with someone,
think about it.
I must sit and ask myself, can this woman be my wife? Can I show her off to my parents and my friends? Will I be proud to hold her and not suck her around 4 a.m. and get her?
Smart, you know? Smart. You haven't had some vodka.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. Most of them are not planned. So you are in the club, you're having a good time.
Thomas, tell me about when you've had the vodka. You're not thinking straight, yeah?
I think, it's not that simple. I mean, Smart was trying to elucidate that point that you could be having a good time, and one thing leads to another, and before you realize you are being told you have a family member on the way. And it can be shocking. Yes. Sometimes it can be shocking how some women can get pregnant very easily and others would struggle to but
easily.
Paula, the thing is that we have to understand that in our society, I personally think that having a baby or getting someone pregnant is very different from getting married to someone. You can't as well get married to someone without really thinking that I want to have a baby with this person, because the marriage is between the two of you. The baby is the product of your love, right? That product might come along the way, it might never come along the way. It's about the two people in love and the two people trying to build a life together. That life might include a baby, right? Or it might include adopting a baby. So it's not that black and white that as soon as someone gets pregnant for you, you should marry that person. However, in our Ghanaian society, like we said before, the baby is something that brings two families together in a way that goes even beyond marriage, right? So it's like marrying is one step of bringing two families together, but once you get someone's daughter pregnant, the families become automatically united in that sense, in the cultural sense. I don't remember the last time a friend of mine had vodka in a club, drinking whatever, and then saw a lady and started calculating, is this the woman I want to marry? Is this the woman I want to have? It won't drop. At that moment, you're very much in the moment of that moment. If you know what I mean.
For recreational.
You're very in the recreational, you know. Okay. So it's not that easy, but women must. And I'm a strong believer that it's fair that this government takes steps to make contraceptives very, very affordable and free for women. In most countries,
we should have like some sort of like vending machine that brings out condoms. People
don't know about it, but if you walk to government hospital, it's very cheap.
Very cheap.
Having to have the IUD, the implants, it's very cheap. People don't know about it. It's even cheaper than the emergency contraceptive that you spend a lot of money on. But then, gentlemen, before we wrap up the show, I know that Smart, you've got, you know, stage play coming out. You're going to tell us about it.
Yes. I'm bringing out the wedding night. Last year we did When Will You Marry Me? And now everybody's beginning to think I'm putting my marriage out there, but that's the funny part. So the wedding night is clearly is about Jephthah and Freema expecting, you know, to have a very good time on their wedding night. They arrive in their bedroom, rose petals on the bed, and they meet a very big surprise, you know, from both parties. Very, very big surprise. We are waiting to see what happens eventually on the day. So the wedding night is showing on the 23rd of April, exactly about a month from now, is going on at the Perez Dome.
But Duke, I also know that you've got amazing stuff going there, from the coaching thing to your novel. Is it available on the market?
No, not yet. We're still working on some finishing touches on that book, and we're expecting it to be out by the close of this year, or probably sooner than that.
Please do out and give it to us, we beg. Well, politicians, if I had interviewed a politician, I'm going to give us a timeline.
It's in the pipeline.
It's in the pipeline.
It's actually in the pipeline. I mean, it's a historic fiction novel, and it's around 1390. So it's the late pre-colonial era. And it's briefly about religious imposition and how Islam was imposed on most of the northern Ghana tribe. The book itself is about the Songhai Empire, the old Songhai Empire, and in Ghana it encompasses the Gruma people, a bit of the Gomba people.
The title again?
The Half Moon.
The Half Moon. Great. Please, but how can we connect with you? Smart?
Yes, Facebook as Smart Stitching Nixon. And almost all my social media channels, Smart Stitching Nixon.
All right. Duke?
Yes, it's Thomas Duke Labeka Mankwando on all my social media platforms.
Great. Thank you very much, gentlemen. I must say I love the conversation and all that. So for my ladies who listen, you know, you should take a cue, especially the part where they're talking about the unplanned pregnancy.
The vodka in the other time.
Anyway, it's always a pleasure coming your way with Moans and Cuddles. And as I always say here, we find ways to spice up your relationship. So whatever you put out here, you should, you know, take a cue and, you know, move forward with it. Thank you very much for watching. We'll be back with the next episode of Moans and Cuddles. I am Paula, Amma, Broni.